afternoon. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of The Edge on IC Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and that's in North Alabama. And we're syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you, Rob Batts, for making that happen. And then also our podcast. I want you to check that out. Okay, right now we're still audio, but we'll be video coming up pretty soon. And you'll find it on the web at netnewsnetwork.net. So you can find it that way as well. Murray Edwards, thank you, Murray, for making this happen. We definitely appreciate being added to this team. And I'll tell you, if you want to hear the truth, they have some awesome talk show hosts on there who will give you the truth about everything that's happening, whether you like to hear it or not. It's going to be there. I have with me a very special guest. He's no stranger to this show, and his name is Alan Mendenhall. Now, Alan, there are a few folks who are going to be brand new to listening to you. Okay, so tell us about you.
Well, thank you, Donna. First of all, thank you for having me on. I've always enjoyed being on your show, and it's an excellent show, and everybody should watch it and listen to it. Well, I am Associate Dean at the Sorrell College of Business at Troy University and Executive Director of the Manuel H. Johnson Center for Political Economy. So I wear two hats. First, I'm an administrator in the business school. And then second, I am an administrator and the head of what is a research and educational think tank that focuses on free market economics. And we run a master's program in economics that is free market oriented. And we host educational programming throughout the state. And we recently held a conference in Birmingham before the legislative session began that caused a little bit of of controversy. So it's exciting to do what I do. I get to live the academic life where I'm researching and writing, but I also get to be public facing and get to be out promoting causes and research. So it's very fun.
Absolutely. You're an author and you are a speaker as well. And so we're so glad to have you back. Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Of course, I have a number of your books and they're all pretty exciting. Before we get started, how can folks find your writings?
The easiest way is probably just to go to www.alanmendenhall.com. That is my personal website, and that's ALLENMendenhall. And there are links to my articles, to my books, to my talks, and that's the best place to start.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. So glad to have you back. So, because, oh man, I'm so glad you guys do what you do. Free market enterprise, I'm telling you, there's no better way. I mean, but we're seeing so many things happen to this country right now. Do you have a little fear? Do you feel like we need more education out there about the free market? And
absolutely. Well, I think that the single biggest issue facing Americans today is the ESG movement, which stands for environmental, social, and governance. And that is the non-financial standards and factors that asset management firms, proxy advisory firms, financial institutions like banks, institutional investors, central banks, sovereign wealth funds, foreign governments, NGOs, all take into account when they allocate capital and assess risk. And this is an international movement. It began with the United Nations and the government of Switzerland hosting a conference in 2004 called Who Cares Wins. You can go and look up the report from this conference and see the roadmap that was provided. And you'll notice that ESG got mainstreamed, over the course of 2016 to 2020. And then the year of the pandemic, right before the pandemic, ESG investing was fairly popular. It's since declined in popularity. It took conservatives and the right until 2021 to really catch on to what this ESG movement is. But it's very dangerous because it involves capital markets, it involves banking, it involves investment. So we're talking about the control of the flow of money. And there has been a concerted effort by the left to capture by regulation and other means the institutions and processes that handle money. So if you own a mutual fund, you're probably funding left-wing causes. If you invest your money through BlackRock, State Street, or Vanguard, you probably are promoting left-wing causes. If you live in a state that is investing pension money, which is the way these large asset management firms got very wealthy, your state is probably investing in political causes with which a large swath of the population in that state disagrees. So this is an extremely disturbing trend. We're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars of assets under management, the most powerful banks, the most powerful corporations colluding with government to promote causes with which ordinary people disagree. And this is not just antithetical to democracy, but it's actually antithetical to the old left-wing values. You used to hear sort of the Marxists say, workers of the world unite and this kind of thing. Well, the left has sort of sold out on that view because right now they are enriching the billionaires and the CEOs and the executives who are now partnering with government to consolidate power and centralize power in sort of an elite few, to encode elite preferences within the administrative state, to erect barriers to entry, to prevent entrepreneurs and small businesses from competing with these big companies. And it is absolutely terrifying. It is an attempt by governments and intergovernmental organizations and NGOs to consolidate power among the people who are sort of within approved circles. Frightening. It's very frightening.
Absolutely. There's a common phrase we conservatives use: go woke, you'll go broke. I mean, that's just it. Do you not see them imploding within themselves someday before it gets too far gone?
Well, so the most recent example is, Bud Light having, a trans spokesperson on commercials and different
It blew up in
marketing,
their face.
and it blew up in their face, and they lost a lot of money. However, it may not matter, because a reason that these companies are going woke is not because they are under the impression that consumers actually want wokeness. It's because they are being taken over in the boardroom by institutional investors and by proxy advisory firms. ISS and Glass Lewis are proxy advisory firms who control about 97% of the market. And they give advice to institutional investors on how to vote. They issue shareholder reports, and they actually vote by proxy. And their interests don't necessarily represent the interests of the beneficiaries, of the real shareholders, the people that actually own shares in the company. What people need to do, who have the means to do it, is they need to go vote their own shares and not have proxy advisory services doing that for them. But then you also have the problem with hedge funds, activist hedge fund managers that are going in and buying large shares of corporations and trying to push corporations to the left. Historically, people would invest in companies, buy stock, and if they didn't like what the companies would do, they would divest of the company. They would withdraw their shares and put their money elsewhere. That's not what's happening today. Today, you have hedge funds that are buying shares of companies with the express intent of pushing those companies to the left. They don't care if they're pushing the companies into bad business or if they hurt the company's profits or bottom line. They want these companies to be engines of progress in a social justice movement, to stand for critical race theory, to stand for, in short, wokeness. That's sort of the term of art that we use today to refer to what's happening in corporate America. And so these activist investors are coming in and pushing companies into politics in ways that actually undermine the company's business.
But you have to be really careful. I mean, you have to think about the people who actually buy Bud Light. We're not talking about a champagne. We're talking about a
Right.
beer. So and these people just won't stand for it. And I think you saw it. But my point on the whole issue here is it really didn't hurt the Bush company like it hurt the people who serve them, such as their distributors.
Yeah.
I know there was a distributor being interviewed, and he said, his profit is just like plummeted because he's going to the bars and the places and they don't want it. They're not
Well,
selling it. So it's
it's
not really hurting Anheuser-Busch as much as it's hurting that little guy with his truck.
well, that's true. It's very interesting. There was a huge golf tournament at Troy Country Club, which is a tiny little place right down the road from where I'm sitting. But it's a big tournament that a lot of people come to every year and play in because it's fun. And, it can get a little rowdy. There's a lot of testosterone at this event. And the people who are working in the country club mentioned that in the course of the 2-day tournament, they had sold maybe 4 Bud Lights. And all these men, I mean, I don't even know how many, it's well over 100 men playing in this tournament. They were buying Miller Lite, whatever, they were buying all the competitors. And they said that the 4 Bud Lights they sold, the people asked them, "Hey, could you pour that in a plastic cup for me? Because I don't want people seeing me holding a Bud Light can."
Right.
And that just goes to show you how out of touch these executives are, and maybe not so much the executives, but the board members who are under pressure from engaged activist shareholders trying to push companies to the left.
Mm-hmm. Well, they should have seen this. Cracker Barrel, made a dumb decision a few years ago. Duck Dynasty. Well, who goes to Cracker Barrel? There's people who watch Duck Dynasty, and most of us look like the people from Duck Dynasty. So it's kind of, common sense is not being even thought about here. I would wonder if you're in a board meeting, and so this person comes up with the idea. By the way, she has been fired from Bush or whatever. So she comes up with this idea about the trans being, couldn't someone you and I would have been in the boardroom going, hold on. I don't think we need to do that.
Yeah.
That's not our customer.
Yeah. In
the world that you and I live in, customer is king.
Right.
My sponsors are the king. I'm going to say what, I take really good care of them. I really care about what they think about my company.
Well, it's interesting because
that's out of the equation.
Yeah, well, the Securities and Exchange Commission is considering a proposed regulation that would institute ESG disclosures for all corporations making money over certain, and they've got to be publicly traded companies. And one prong of ESG, of course, is the G, which is governance. And what you see under this prong is the push to enforce diversity, equity, inclusion in boardrooms. And I can tell you that does not mean people that watch Duck Dynasty and are the Duck Dynasty types. But what you end up getting as a result is you get people that are ideologues, people who are out of touch with everyday Americans and the heartland, the people in the South, the people in the Midwest, the flyover country. And they are making decisions that are fundamentally at odds with the normal person, the regular average Joe. And by Joe, I almost hate to use that term since we've got a Joe in the White House who's below average. But it's stunning how out of touch these boardrooms have become, and it would be great if they just I don't know how else to put it, but just grabbed 1 or 2 rednecks and threw them on the board, and had them tell these executives what it is that they want out of a product, And
I think you're losing. You're out of touch, and I just can't see this progressing. Let's go ahead and cut into a commercial break. Can you believe over half the show is over? So let's go to a commercial break. We're going to be right back in just a minute. Everybody hang in there, okay?
The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and my employees and I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support. With everything going on right now, your rest is so important. That's why we're having the biggest MyPillow sale ever. Not only are my bed pillows as low as $19.98, but you can get the best body pillows ever. Regular $89.98, now only $29.98. Take your rest on the go with our Roll and Go Anywhere My Pillows for only $14.98. And we have our new couch and accent pillows. They aren't just for looks. They have MyPillow's patented adjustable fill that gives you that amazing MyPillow comfort. In this economy, you get the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code and you get deep discounts on body, couch, bolster pillows, and so much more, including my original bed pillows for as low as $19.98. Please order now while quantities last.
Let Rhonda at Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC take the burden off you for all your tax needs. I know because Rhonda has been taking care of my business since 2013. I feel Rhonda works for me because she knows the direct questions to ask to better benefit my unique business in order for me to get back the biggest refund possible. Rhonda is an ongoing student, and she knows tax laws are in a constant change every year. Call 256-281-9903 for an appointment to take the dread out of getting your taxes done. Rhonda is located at 11968 U.S. Highway 431 in Boaz. Again, that number is 256-281-9903. And let Donna's Elite Tax LLC champion your personal and business taxes. Jeff McCurdy of the McCurdy Law Firm has been a public service of this area for over 10 years. McCurdy, a member of the Henniger City Council, serves as prosecutor for the town of Sylvania and was named public defender for the city of Rainsville. The McCurdy Law Firm is located at 17326 Alabama Highway 75 in Henniger to better represent his Jackson and DeKalb County clients. If you need to be represented by a true public servant with proven success, call Jeff at 256-996-8701 or send a private email to mccurdylawfirm@gmail.com. No representation is made that the legal services performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of The Edge on IC Radio. We are your source for news and entertainment. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, Abundant Television, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Check out the podcast right there at netnewsnetwork.net. You know, the hardest thing, Alan, about actually being on netnewsnetwork.net is to remember where to put the nets. There's 3 of them down there. I got it now. I got it. The first show, I was just really imploding it. It was just terrible. But anyway, great folks to work with. And I'm really proud to be part of this network. Just to be included, it just makes me feel good, you know, that I can be included with a bunch of folks like this who really care about the truth, and they really care about what we are all about in America and keeping our standards. I mean, you've got to have some core beliefs, and I'm feeling the woke companies are not having the same core beliefs we have.
No, they're not. And there are traceable reasons for that. As I mentioned, the ESG movement is international in scope. It's being driven by, the Paris Climate Accord, by the United Nations, by the European Union, by any number of foreign governments, and the World Economic Forum, which was founded by Klaus Schwab. And Klaus Schwab wrote a book called the COVID-19 The Great Reset. And what's so funny is that when you hear people criticize the Great Reset, people who are opponents of it, they automatically get labeled a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. What is this Great Reset thing? And if you point out, well, wait a second, this is just the title in Klaus Schwab's book. This is his theory. And all of a sudden, if you're just describing something that Klaus Schwab says in his book, you're the conspiracy theorist. It's like, well, no, I'm just telling you what he said in his book. Like, this is what he says needs to happen. We need these, this global coordination that involves public-private partnerships, and we need to break down the public-private distinction by having governments exercise a degree of control over corporations and having corporations participate in government in a way that, frankly, is unprecedented in the course of human history at this scale. We've always had cronyism, we've always had corporatism and mercantilism and different forms of public-private collusion, but what we haven't seen is this sort of globalized version of it, and that's because in recorded human history, we've never had the technological capability to coordinate in the way we can today. And so it's a shocking phenomenon.
It's so bold. It's so out there. It almost makes me think I'm in second grade again, where you're out on the playground. Nobody wants to be called names. So nobody wants to be bold and fight back. We don't have enough fighters out there.
We don't. And there's some efforts by red states now being led by Texas and Florida. DeSantis' administration has been very strong in pushing back against ESG. And even states that were formerly solidly blue, although they were sort of blue collar blue, like West Virginia, which has natural resources, mining and coal. And they're going to be devastated by ESG. And what you find is states like West Virginia, which have high rates of poverty, are the states that suffer the most from ESG. And it's not just a United States phenomenon, that is a global issue. The countries that are disproportionately impacted by this ESG regime tend to be poor states. I've got friends in Guatemala, lots of them, and they're talking about, well, if this ESG regime gets imposed from the top down and institutionalized in the United States, and then in some kind of more global way, we won't be able to survive that. We can't afford to buy Teslas down here. We're already struggling to have cars to drive to work. Now we're all going to be forced to walk to work, and we're going to suffer from these. And this is like a tax on the third world, so to speak. And that's frankly what these people like. They want to amass that kind of power and control. They're getting all the industry money to themselves. They realize that competition, small businesses, small corporations can't compete with any type of regulatory regime tied to ESG. The compliance would be far too expensive, and so they're pricing out people from the market. And that's why ESG is being pushed by big banks, big asset managers, the largest corporations that you can find in publicly traded companies, because they realize that the more ESG is regulated, the more it becomes embedded in the administrative state and government agencies, the more likely it is that they will be the remaining players when all the other people who can't afford to comply are priced out.
Absolutely. You know what really blows my mind? These people, they always find a specialized group. Okay, we want to help the children. We want to help, you hate old people and all this kind of stuff, And so they say that, but then I don't see a lot of protection for the needy and for the poor. They say we love the poor. I don't see the love.
You look at someone like Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. I mean, how much time does he spend with the poor? He flies his private jet around despite all the climate rules that he promotes. And he spends zero time with the poor. That's why the World Economic Forum is held in a luxury resort in Davos, Switzerland, because they want to stay away from the poor. And this ESG stuff is not, it's so dishonest. We've got terms like greenwashing, which refer to corporations fudging data, misrepresenting their true commitments to environmentalism. But we don't hear as much of like woke washing, which is that these companies aren't really committed to these social justice causes. They check boxes. We're going to give money to Black Lives Matter. Check a box. They don't care about social
No, they
issues.
don't.
They don't care about that kind of stuff, and all they care about is making themselves look palatable to the other elites, and it's all about virtue signaling on a grand scale. But
Mhm.
it all comes at the expense of the people they purport to help, the people who are really suffering. They're truly poor and marginalized. They have no place in this ESG regime. They're the ones that are impacted by it in a negative way.
Okay, if the regime who is in the White House right now, if they continue on for another 4 years, will there be a middle class?
There will be a national divorce. I think that may not happen within the next 4 years, but it will be just one step in that direction. And frankly, from their perspective, if Donald Trump were to win or if DeSantis were to win, they would see that as a step in the direction of a national divorce. I think that this national divorce question has been mainstreamed. I think it was something that would have had you labeled an extremist or a kook or whatever um, 4 years ago, but now it is mainstream discussion. There's just a fundamental dividing line between people, and red states and blue states are finding less and less areas of agreement. We actually see that there are more independent voters than there have been before, but the parties themselves tend to be moving uh, farther apart.
Mhm.
And public opinion suggests that people are becoming increasingly fractured and divided on important issues. And so I think it's just natural to consider whether, like a real marital divorce, whether there becomes irreconcilable differences, and it's just better for both parties to separate and peacefully um, divide assets and go on their own way.
I would love that. Do you think that would happen statewide? How do you think that would happen?
Well, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I suspect if you look at the boundaries of Europe over the past 300 years, you'll see they expand, they contract. Some countries come, some countries go. There's nothing that suggests that that wouldn't happen in the United States of America too. There's no like biblical guarantee that the United States of America will have these territorial boundaries and borders exactly as they are forever and ever. Amen. So I don't know what that would look like, but you're starting to see signs of coordination, coalitions that have developed. For example, 18 red states just joined together to form an anti ESG coalition. You have states attorneys generals who have coordinated on sending letters to ISS and Glass Lewis. They have coordinated on pushback against BlackRock. You've got states that are divesting from BlackRock and from other asset management firms. And that's really important that these states are working in concert in ways that they haven't before. Governors are collaborating in ways that they haven't. State attorneys general are collaborating in ways that were sort of new historically.
Mhm.
That trend began under the Obama administration, but it's only accelerated lately to the point where now it's just what these states do. The blue states do it, and the red states do it. And that was kind of unheard of back, 20 years ago. You thought of the attorney general as just being the state's top cop. They were just prosecutors. They were going to defend the state in lawsuits, but, they were more or less prosecutors. It's so much different now. They are proactive, and they take stands on national issues, whether it's abortion or ESG, and they represent the state's interests politically in ways that weren't common 20 years ago.
Alan, we're going to have to call it a day. Can you believe 30 minutes has flown by?
It sure
We'll
has.
be back, but you're going to be another segment with us coming up in a couple of weeks. Thank you again so much for watching The Edge on IC Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182, on Charter Communications Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple, Amazon Fire, and also that podcast down there in netnewsnetwork.com. Alan, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Donna.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys a little bit later. You take care.